Let's look at the basic topic that you saw before. Based on the Paris attacks, should we allow Syrian refugees throughout Europe? This argument deals with many complex issues with many different facets, so you're going to have to look at the information very carefully to decide your best argument. So, some things you may want to think about what could be the best argument. What are the essential problems here? Is there a greater chance of terrorism abroad? Are these threats worse than the good that could come from accepting the refugees? As you see, a good answer here would take into account a great deal of complexity. Here's a sample focus. Stopping the flow of refugees undermines the democratic values that are the bedrock of our culture. Although allowing refugees may pose a risk to American safety, the risk is minimal in relation to the suffering created because this is inherently a humanitarian crisis more than a military one. So let's think about our first topic, the duty to assist. We want to think about how can we use evidence to help develop this argument. The following quote seems to help us answer that question. I highlighted it from the article. In practice, a systematic screening with those seeking asylum in Europe needs to be conducted more thoroughly. So here's how it might be used within a sentence. We need to assess them more thoroughly, grant, and perhaps a systematic screening is needed in this case, but to stop the flow altogether would have the opposite effect. Here are two more examples of evidence. First, but this is the time for caution and being level-headed. Each time we point the finger of blame at the refugees, we are doing the work for militants who want to create a them versus us culture. Secondly, since at least 4 of the conspirators on Friday's attacks were born and raised in France, the policy responses will need to address far more than migration and asylum. 20% of ISIS recruits from France are converts to Islam, so radicalization is clearly not exclusive to recent migrants. See how these two quotes work together? Now let's see how we can use it in a synthesis. It is our goal to create a them versus us culture, Awan. By betraying our duty to the world, we are in actuality giving up our identity. This will encourage more attacks. As in Paris, 4 of the 5 attackers were born in the country. The threat is more domestic than international. Following the same line of thinking, try to think about how you might synthesize other information from other articles.